Operation Northwoods was a 1962 plan by the U.S. Department of Defense that proposed a series of false flag operations against their own citizens. CIA operatives were to be deployed to stage and actually commit acts of terrorism against civil and military targets within the United States. The government of Cuba were to be blamed, providing an excuse for a U.S. war against the communist-run island. Suggestions for staged atrocities included hijacking or shooting down planes, attacking boatloads of Cuban refugees, and carrying out random acts of terrorism in U.S. cities. Concocted evidence would then be presented as a justification for strikes against Cuba. Although the plan was ultimately rejected by then-President John F. Kennedy, the fact that it was even considered is horrifying. Northwoods could not be dismissed as outside-the-box thinking by fringe elements within the intelligence community. It was drafted by the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the U.S. military and signed by their chairman, Lyman Lemnitzer, in a document entitled Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba, (Top Secret), which was then passed to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. The Joint Chiefs proposed that they would run both the covert and overt aspects of the operation. This request, presumably along with the obvious moral repugnance, would have caused it to be unacceptable to Kennedy. As the Commander-in-Chief, he would not only be responsible for the false flag operations, but would be ceding control of the project to the unhinged generals who had devised it. Rumours about false flag plans such as Operation Northwoods made it into the public discourse years after the fact, but were always flatly denied by the US military and government. Then in November 1997, the so-called conspiracy theorists were proven to have been right all along. The John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Review Board, a federal agency charged with releasing records that could be relevant to Kennedy's murder, declassified 1,521 pages of previously secret documents. Kennedy assassination buffs, hoping to find a smoking gun that would blow the assassination case wide open, were to be disappointed. But we have their persistent campaigning to thank for finally confirming what was long suspected, that high-ranking elements within the US government were quite prepared to sacrifice innocent civilians to advance geopolitical objectives. The Northwoods plan appeared initially in an abridged form before being published in full online by the National Security Archive on the 30th of April 2001. It emerged that the entire US government was interested in creating pretexts for military interventions against Cuba, and was casting around for what form they might take. The document release also revealed Operation Mongoose, a similar provocation plan, under the control of Brigadier General Edward Lansdale. Thoughts turned to the US base at Guantanamo Bay, a historical anomaly from the 1898 Spanish-American War in which the US, in return for aiding Cuban independence, secured an option to buy or lease Cuban land for naval bases through an amendment to the Cuban Constitution. The amendment was repealed in 1934, and Castro considered Guantanamo an illegal occupation. A false flag here might prove highly credible, given the circumstances. Other plans included blaming any potential failure of the Mercury spaceflight, in which John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth, on Cuban technical interference. The Kennedy assassination buffs did find some grist for the mill in the document release. In a 16th of March 1962 meeting, Kennedy blanched at the Northwoods plan and informed Lemnitzer that, in any case, military action against Cuba was off the table. Lemnitzer was removed as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff soon after, although he was later shuffled to Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. A clear rift had now been established between Kennedy, who was concerned about Europe, and the generals and intelligence community, who were obsessed with the geographical closeness of communist Cuba, despite generally improving relations between Washington and Moscow. Whether their belief that Kennedy had gone soft on communism crystallized into assassination plots is a whole different ballgame. The final unmasking of Operation Northwoods is telling and relevant to us all, not just people in the US. We are endlessly lied to by governments of every stripe. In the last few years, when we have been constantly told that governments act only to further our health and welfare, we would do well to remember the callous disregard for the lives of ordinary people that was displayed by the twisted minds behind Operation Northwoods.